Hello. I'm going to be talking about a political scandal which won't go away here in the UK. It's called Partygate. And I'm going to be talking about Ukraine as well, because I have a horrible feeling, a steadily growing feeling, that the two are related. Now, I've had a few comments under my videos to the effect that they don't want to hear any more about Ukraine. And they want to hear more about issues that are closer to home. And I would suggest that such people are being very short-sighted because, as it happens, Ukraine is a lot closer to home than most people think. And this goes all the way to the Prime Minister's office. And we'll start by remembering that over a year ago, Boris Johnson was going round the various European states, warning them of trouble with Russia and trying to get some consensus about how to deal with it. That was over a year ago. How much have you heard of that in the British newspapers? Where are the big sort of articles about how our Prime Minister had his finger so much on the pulse of world politics that he was ahead of the game there? How much have you heard about that? Also, how much have you heard about the fact that over a year ago, Ukrainians were coming over to the United Kingdom for military training? Not a lot, I dare say, but the results are certainly showing up now in the way the Ukrainian army is managing as against, let's say, the Russian army. The British preparations show only too well the importance of good training, but you don't hear about that either now. So why do you think we're not getting this message? Why do you think this isn't giving us this isn't a source of national pride? Why do you think the only issue we're hearing about, again and a boring again, are Johnson and Partygate? Just for the record, I shall explain that on his birthday, the Downing Street staff brought a cake, which they presented to Johnson. Now, there are reports of Labour politicians also in such gatherings, and there's a photo of the leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, enjoying a beer with colleagues in his office. But Johnson's slice of cake is the hot topic, and nothing else matters. And this is like a sort of stain over the whole country, isn't it? We're not proud of our foresight with respect to Ukraine. No, we're beating ourselves up about breaking rules and having a piece of cake in the office. And so for that reason, we're not hearing about Johnson's heroic efforts, without which the situation in Eastern Europe would be very different. I'm certain of that. Right, let's consider why there may be a Partygate scandal that won't go away. Well, we all know that much of the media cannot forgive Johnson for Brexit, and they want to get at him as much and any way as they can. And that's as far as I, up till quite recently, thought that it went. But I'm starting to think that there might be another reason as well for this to be happening. Now, how about all of this getting a little encouragement from a certain dictator, for instance? The blogosphere is saturated with bots and sock puppets pushing the Russian line. We know that, even for little fish like me. I got one butte. I got one butte the other day. It was about the Moskva, you know, the boat that sank in the Black Sea. It seems that the pictures of the ship were all of a Norwegian military exercise, and that the Moskva didn't sink and nobody died. Right. With stuff like that, you have to just know that there's a concentrated propaganda effort. And as I say, it's even affecting a tiny channel like mine. So for sure, there'll be propaganda going after big fish as well. And one of the biggest, of course, is Boris Johnson. It wouldn't take much, would it? Such an indomitable friend of Ukraine would certainly be better out of the picture as far as the Russians are concerned. So, the fertile fields of the BBC to sow such seeds, it's easy as anything, isn't it? Though anyone who thinks that talking about Ukraine is irrelevant to us here in the UK might consider that. Now, let's consider the financial and social implications of a Russian victory in that area. Ukraine and Russia supply tons of wheat and corn to places all over the world, but a very great deal of it goes to what's known as the MENA, the crescent, the Middle East and North African crescent, and principally to Libya and Egypt. It should be no surprise to anyone to learn that although those crops come from both Ukraine and Russia, supplies from Ukraine are far more in proportion to its size than from Russia. Because when has Russia ever overproduced anything recently? Now, at the moment, a war is restricting harvesting and shipping. So the exports have been cut, and particularly Libya and Egypt are feeling the pinch. Libya grows little else but oil, by the way, and it imports 80% of its grain consumption, and 60% of that is from Ukraine. How do we feel about more hunger-inspired wars and revolutions in the MENA Crescent? And I would remind you that serious disruption in that area could affect the Suez Canal, and surely the least informed of those people making the comments should know that the Suez Canal is quite important to world trade and Britain in particular. And by the way, corn and wheat isn't the only thing we have to worry about. There's sunflower oil as well. Most of southern India cooks with Ukrainian sunflower oil, and since that's not coming through, they're going to be turning to palm oil. And another set of orangutans are going to die in Malaysia. All these things are connected, you know. Now, let's just talk about the Hodge twins. Some of you will know of them. They're a very clever, witty and entertaining pair of American vloggers. I suppose they're fairly right-wing. I haven't heard everything that they've put out, so I don't know. But to my absolute shock, at the beginning of the hostilities, one of them said something like, "Why don't the Ukrainians just surrender?" I was pretty surprised by that. The Ukrainian surrender would mean basically that the Ukrainians would become the helots of the Russians. And I can't understand why a couple of American black men might not be shocked at the idea of one country raiding another for resources and slaves. Do you think that it'll be all sweetness and light for the surviving Ukrainians under the Russian thumb? They know what it's like. They've been there before during their granny's youth, and they will know some stories. And if the Russians got control of Ukraine, how long do you think it'll be before the agricultural production drops? Slaves have never been the most enthusiastic of workers. Now, that's the first thing. The second is that we all know that Russia won't stop. Well, not with Putin in charge. And unfortunately, people keep talking about getting rid of Putin, but that's not going to change. If this Putin goes, another Putin will take his place, because that's the way the Russians have always governed themselves. Yeah, I know there are historical reasons for it, but that doesn't change the facts on the ground. So we'll have a Europe quaking in fear every time Russia coughs, and how will that increase our industrial capacity and long-term planning? Germany depends on Russian oil, and if Ukraine folds, it won't see any reason to change that situation. I apologise to my German subscribers, but I have to say I'm disappointed in your country. I gave it more credit for sturdiness. As for the USA, well, there might be some who in America will say, "Oh, to hell with Europe, we'll just stick to ourselves." And it might be tempting, but I doubt it would be very good long term, with a set of European vassals on one side of your coast, just complying with whatever Russia tells them to do, and the Chinese on the other. I'm not saying this will happen. What I am saying is that there are worldwide implications for this war that go well beyond the sunflower fields of Eastern Europe. And I am Graniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. When I've uploaded a video, I'll let you know on Twitter, Gab and Parler, where I am at Graniopteryx. Please like this video, share it, especially share it with somebody who might have some influence. Let's see, what else? Yes, subscribe to my channel, support my channel if you can, and I'll see you next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.